Let's look now at the data section of it. So this is when we're actually going to do the experiment, collect our data and put our data into the right format to be able to get our graphs and things. So the first step of actually doing the experiment, you're going to be working in groups of around 3 to 4 students per group. So that means that there's going to be different roles that each student needs to take within this. So we're going to need to know who's the presenter, so who is going to explain to the class and give the instructions. Who's going to record the data, okay, making sure that the data is all processed in the right format. Who's going to manage the materials, so any pictures, any websites, anything else that you might need, who's going to be organising and in charge of all that. And then who's the observer, so who's going to be writing down the observations and noticing what students do when they do the experiment in case there are things that might affect the results. So we're going to have some different roles there that students need to take. So once we've actually gone and done the experiment, the next step is to actually analyse the data. So we first of all just jump into Excel, and as you can see there's an example there. I'm going to create my data. I've got one column with the groups and one column with the numbers in it. When I then go to NZGrapher, I will be able to, up the top left hand corner, there's a button there called Paste Table, and so I can click on that and that will paste my information into NZGrapher. From there you just do what you did for the inference one, get a dot plot with your box and whisker graph and your summary statistics. So that's the normal standard graph that you want to be able to get out of it once you have entered the data. So the new step is being able to enter that data into the system. Now for the observation, whether there's going to be a person, or at least one person if not more, that's going to be allocated to doing the observing. And at excellence level we want to be able to talk about what improvements would you make based on what observations you've made. So here's an example, and I've noticed this from the previous times I've done this experiment with other classes. As I said, I noticed that some students use the arms to balance themselves. So that means some students had their arms by their side and some of the students had their arms out horizontally to try and help balance themselves, like gymnasts do when they're walking on the beam. So when I saw that students were doing that, I first of all noticed that that meant that the conditions weren't the same, that not all students, not all experimental units had the same conditions. And now I'm having to wonder, would that have an effect on how long a person could stand on their leg? And so that's my improvement that I'm going to suggest, that if I do this experiment again, I would have some instructions there for people to keep their hands by their side so that I can control that condition. So that means that any results that I'm going to see then will not be due to whether or not students are using their arms to help balance themselves or not. So I need to observe things that could affect my results, and then I need to say, well, how would I do that better in the future?